Welcome back, and to one of our top stories today, thousands taking to the streets at the weekend after the arrest of Istanbul's Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, who was formally charged with corruption after being detained last week. The protests are Turkey's largest in over a decade, and come as İmamoğlu was expected to announce his candidacy for the 2028 presidential election. His party has named him as the next candidate to take on President Erdogan. Turkey has also imposed travel restrictions on Istanbul to curb protests, closing bridges across the city and shuttering internet access. A look at the lira now after this week's events as well. Turkey's currency hitting a record low of 42 against the US dollar before policymakers stepped in to try and stem the slide. Reports say officials spent as much as $12 billion to prop up the currency. The central bank also making an emergency move to lift Turkey's overnight lending rate. And Turkish stocks in focus as well, risk assets taking a hit after dipping nearly 10% and logging their worst weekly drop since October 2008. Turkey's Capital Markets Board on Sunday also banning short selling on the Istanbul bourse while easing share buyback limitations and equity ratio requirements. Very pleased to say my next guest is Umut Ozkarimli. He's a senior research fellow at eBay, joining me live now from Turkey. Sir, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here. First of all, just in your own experience, walk me through exactly what happened on the streets of Istanbul this weekend and in other major cities around Turkey. Just how wide, just how large were the protests that you saw?
Okay, so thank you for having me. Very quickly, I live in Spain, but I have been, I'm following everything closely because of all my friends and family are there, and it's my job. It's the first, when they've taken the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, into custody a couple of days ago on the 19th of March, on Thursday. This wasn't something that us Turkey experts didn't expect. So we knew it was coming. And of course, the timing was especially right with the Western pressure on Turkey almost non-existing, the Kurdish peace talks, the collapse of the regime in Syria and all of that. So it was in a bit not unexpected. What we didn't know was, of course, how much people would react to that. And the first indications that we got was that this was very similar to what we seen in 2013 in Gezi protests, but it is different. Now, just to answer very quickly to our specific questions, right, it's growing. The first night, there were only 300,000 people in Saraçhane at the gathering that the mayor and the opposition party, in solidarity with the mayor who was in custody, organized. Yesterday, that number went up to 1 million people only in Saraçhane. We know that at least 25 cities there are protest manifestations, despite an official national ban on protesting. And what is even more important is that CHP, the opposition party, organized some sort of a, how shall we say it, kind of an election, an informal election, to determine their presidential candidate in 2028 and ask people to go and vote. And 15 people, an estimate of 15 people voted in this. This makes it, on its own, İmamoğlu the most popular candidate ever in Turkish history, and already 23 to 24% of the vote if it were really elections, if there were really elections. So it's big. It's big, and it's gonna, we'll see the economy today. You've been talking about it, but it's big.
Indeed, and of course what we have seen is significant measures from policymakers to try and curb the volatility that we've seen in a lot of risk assets. Speaking of the economy, I mean, just how fragile is the Turkish financial system right now, given the billions of dollars that have reportedly been spent to try and stabilize the lira alone?
Extremely. And I'm not one for exaggerations. We know that the economy minister Mehmet Şimşek was brought in to stabilize the system, and he's been doing some structural reforms and was able to gather quite a lot of accumulate quite a lot of federal reserves in dollars in the last year. Now, what we know, these are official figures of of Financial Times, but also other indicators, is that in the first 3 days, the Turkish Central Bank has spent $12 billion to stabilize the currency. And that amounts to, this is something that I saw last night before going to bed. It's the Turkish Central Bank and the economy minister has already spent 79% of the money it accumulated to fix the system in the last year. So all these measures, precautions, structural reforms, the money that was gathered, 79%, let's say 80% of it was spent in 3 days. I also heard from my friends who are inside the opposition party that the AKP representatives are extremely cautious. The economy is very worried, and the economy minister was having informal and formal meetings with banks yesterday in order to avoid a huge crash this morning. Well, we'll see in a couple of hours. Maybe we're already seeing it, because they're worried. So this could go to Turkey has never declared bankruptcy as far as I know, but this is like an Argentina type of situation in terms of the economy.
And of course, what we have seen in Turkey is several years now, under the finance minister Mehmet Şimşek, who I have spoken to personally on panels over the last couple of years, real growth and reform narrative on the ground. And he has worked really hard to try and firm up foreign direct investment, to shore up investor confidence in Turkey's story after years of unorthodox economic policy under Erdogan. Do you think Turkey is still investable at this point?
Well, I mean, I'm not an economist and I wouldn't be in a position to say it with certain expertise, but obviously not. And that's what we're hearing. Özgür Özel himself, the leader of the opposition, said yesterday in his official speech that Mehmet Şimşek was actually considering resigning, and that the president was trying to keep him in power, because, you know, the moment he goes, that's really the collapse, because I mean, he is using his personal credibility and reputation with foreign institutions to get us to this point. He was extremely unhappy, and he was about at the point of quitting, and that's according to the rumors or information shared by the main opposition party leader officially, publicly last night. Now, it's unfixable. I could have given you a very personal, very short, but I think anecdotally very important example. I sometimes, have to convert some money in Turkey to dollars, because otherwise keeping the money in Turkish lira doesn't mean anything. The window that my bank gives me to make that operation is 17 seconds. I repeat, 17 seconds. If I don't do anything for 17 seconds and convert my money into dollars or euros, the screen refreshes, because that's how fast the value of lira changes in relation to euro or dollars. So this was the situation before these events. Now imagine today.
Indeed. Absolutely fascinating situation on the ground, and of course so troubling for so many Turks who are still in Turkey at this point. Umut, we'll leave it there. I appreciate the conversation, and also I recognize you're joining us from Spain. Thank you so much for your insights and your analysis today. We're looking forward to speaking again soon. That's Umut Ozkarimli of eBay. Up next on the program, Europe's busiest airport reopening on Saturday, but a warning to travellers. Still expect significant delays. That's the message. We'll have the latest on the other side of this. Stay with us. We're back in 2 minutes.